Hey guys, welcome back to part two with Dr. George in the house for part two here. We got some great questions we got lined up for him. So I'll make sure you guys listen to the end. What a great interview this one is. Top interview for sure.
George, you said that you used isolated while you used. Did you have any friends that you used with, or did you not have to go through that, like leaving friends behind phase?
I did not use with anybody. I isolated. I used by myself in my own little world. But I did have to ultimately say goodbye to slippery people, places, and things in recovery. And there's a lot of things that I did in active addiction that included some people that I know were not good for me. They would trigger me. They would end with me going down a very bad path. Some of these people were opportunists. They took advantage of me. And I let them take advantage of me. I didn't know any better. But I didn't use with anybody. I used alone.
George, how common is it in like the medical field with doctors and nurses to, suffer in silence because of the fear of, their peers or anything like that?
Very good question, Dave. It's a very pertinent question. In fact, even though my story is public knowledge, a month ago, the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario, our regulating body, the organization that gives our licenses to us and can suspend us at the drop of a hat, they have this monthly journal, and it was based on mental health and addiction and burnout, and I'm very honored to have co-authored a paper basically telling my story to the 40,000 doctors in Ontario that got delivered to them in this journal to their house last month, in the hopes that people see that there is life after addiction in medicine, right? And they should get some help. There are lots and lots and lots of doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals that are in active addiction as we speak, that do not get help because they're afraid of being reprimanded, whether it's getting their license suspended and not being able to earn a living, or losing their job in a hospital, or getting judged. I'll give you an example. When in early recovery, I had to let go some of my patients that were on prescription drugs because I can't prescribe them anymore, right? And some of these people were legitimately on drugs that they needed, right? These weren't addicts. These are people with chronic pain, and they needed this stuff. They're on the ball. And I'd say, look, I can't prescribe as of this date. My license is done with respect to narcotics. And they'd say, well, what are we going to do? And I'd be like, go find a doc and tell them the truth. Tell them that I have a family doctor, and he's an addict in recovery, and he started with the Physicians Health Program, and he's given up his right to prescribe controlled substances, and he's got a restricted license, right? And tell them that you need a new doc. And this one lady came back about a month later, and she looked very upset. She sat in my office, and I said, hey, Linda, what's going on? She's like, I did it. George, she goes, I did everything you told me to do. And I Googled this one doc, and I thought she was perfect. And I sat in her office, and I told her everything you told me to say. And when I told her about you, she said, oh, he's one of those doctors. And I'll tell you, not only did it hurt Linda's feelings because she cared about me, but it hurt my feelings. And these are people that are supposed to be trained in this stuff, that are supposed to understand. So there is a huge, huge stigma that we're trying to at least normalize a little bit. And by having people like me hopefully come out and say, hey guys, this is what happened to me, and this is where I'm at now. And really, the only thing that happened to me was that I got my life back. And I wanted to be a doctor ever since I was a little kid, and I still get to do it. I'm the luckiest guy in the world, and I still get to do it, and I'm an addict in recovery. But and then the other thing that happened, Dave, is that, to give you an idea, you'd think that my message went out to 40,000 doctors, right? Last month. The only people that reached out to me are people that already know me to congratulate me on the article. When I was in hospital for my multiple medical adventures, brain tumors and such, in 2 admissions, I had 3 doctors that were working in hospital approach me because they read on my chart that I was in recovery, asking for some help and some pointers, which was kind of cool, but that
Yeah.
scares the, yeah, but you think about it, right? Right? How many people are suffering in silence? I think a ton.
Yeah.
And hopefully through forums like this, we can get the word out that, hey, there is life after addiction.
I find it really interesting that in person they were more willing to talk to you about it rather than, kind of write to you, right, and have it in writing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, in person, because it's just they're not sending it anywhere. It can't be traced. They don't know who's going to intercept the message, right? When they're sitting in the room and I'm like sick, right? But they feel comfortable. Oh my God, this is a living proof guy that he can be a doctor and in recovery. Maybe he can give me some pointers.
Yeah.
Right. So the key is to keep helping, keep spreading the word, so when I have people in my life that start to get disillusioned with recovery, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? What am I getting out of this? So you know what I'm doing it for? I'll tell you what I'm doing it for. A pretty good incentive. There's these 2 girls in my life, these 2 young women that have inherited my genes. They have a 50% higher risk of developing some kind of addiction, use disorder, or mental illness. And I have an obligation to show these young women, my daughters, how to live life with my disease. That's a pretty good incentive.
That's amazing.
Right? That's how I try and justify it, right? I could say, oh, my daughter's inherited my putrid genes and life is over. No, I have an obligation and I have an incentive to show Steph and Mel, here's my disease, here's the Fotopoulos disease, one of many, and here's how to deal with it. And I'm going to show you as much as God lets me to show how to do it in the right, healthy way.
With George, I guess, follow up, the stigma is still there, but how, I guess, excited maybe are you, or I don't know what the right word is, but as far as like how the trend we're going in, as far as maybe back when your father was maybe suffering, to yourself, to your daughters, and then future grandchildren, like, do you think we're on the right path with breaking the stigma a bit?
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, my old man, God bless him, never went to a meeting, never really found recovery. He was an old soldier, right? And when the doc finally said to him, John, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to not see your boys grow up. You better stop. He did. Like, he's one of these weird guys that actually stopped drinking when the doctor told him to stop drinking. I can't figure that one out, but hey, whatever. Never stopped smoking, but he stopped drinking, right? So he never found recovery. I think we're in the right direction. I really do. We're heading in the right direction. We need more forums like this to try and show people that they're not alone, right? If we can just reach one person suffering in silence, we've done our job. But the other thing I really believe is that we know very little about addiction disorders. That's the truth. The treatment for addiction disorders is archaic. It's like a baby compared to heart surgery, diabetes treatment, all this other stuff. Maybe one day there's going to be this magic pill or this magic treatment that's going to cure our disease, right? Right now, it ain't it. We don't have it. So the treatment for addiction and substance use disorders that we have at our disposal, based on what we know right now in society, is very simple things. Go to meetings, live a simple, healthy, transparent, clean life full of dignity, do some studies, pray, journal, help people, right? If you need to do abstinence based like I do, if you need to do harm reduction medicine, there's lots of harm reduction recovery. It's solid, it's reasonable. I'm not saying just because I'm an abstinence based recovery guy that I don't think that harm reduction isn't worth it. We're moving along, we're growing, we're heading in the right direction. I have no doubt in my mind, Dave. I think we're miles from where we need to be, but each journey starts with one step, and through forums like this, if somebody told me 15 years ago or 20 years ago, I don't even, a Zoom meeting, what the heck's that 15 years ago, right? Forget that. But, if somebody told me that I'm going to get together with a bunch of men that are, younger than me and talk about our mutual disease and celebrate it, the recovery part of it, and try and spread the word of health and accept mental health as a legitimate issue, I wouldn't believe it. Yes, Jared.
Oh, sorry. So in rehab, I never knew that addiction was a disease before that.
Right.
And when I got to rehab, then I started learning about it. And it took me a little bit to actually understand it and realize that it was a disease. When you were actively using, were you aware that you had that disease?
That's a good question, eh? I used to carry a man purse. You remember those things?
Yeah.
And I
I
used
still
to
carry
lie
them.
about it. Do you still have one, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark, you have one? Yeah?
Yep.
There you go. Put all your stuff in there, eh?
Yep, you bet.
So my man purse, you know what it had in it? I used to tell people it had all kinds of important things and all kinds of medical equipment and all kinds of things. You know what it had in it? Drugs.
Yes.
I thought that was a trick question.
No. So here you go. Here I am, a graduate of U of T Medical School. I'll tell you where the progress has happened. When I went to medical school, University of Toronto, from 1986 to 1990, in 4 years of training, we had half an afternoon of education on alcoholism. Think about that, 3 hours. Last year, I spent 7 days talking to U of T students in Addiction Week at U of T. So we're moving forward. But I'll tell you, drinking was part of being a doctor, man. Like, drinking was part of being a medical student. Best parties I've ever had in my life was in medical school. It's true. I'm not trying to celebrate it, but it's the truth.
Absolutely.
And it was just an extension into growing up older, and it just became another substance. It's if anybody knows me, they know how stubborn I am, or how stubborn I was. And I'm a very intense human. And I'm not a smart person. I'm a hard worker. My brother was a smart student in the family. I just worked hard. My brother was brilliant, is brilliant. For me to actually get to a state, Jared, where as a smart, educated human, you'd think that I would know better. And I didn't. And I kept it going. That's the power of our disease. our disease is minimized as far as how dangerous it is. Unless there's people that can talk about it and spread the word about how bad it can be and how dangerous it is, people don't realize how dangerous this thing is. And it's not only a disease of the sufferer, it affects everybody around us, right? All our family and our friends, and it destroys communities and societies, right? So, yeah, you'd think that I would know better. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not Dr. Fotopoulos, Jared. I was that kid from Parkdale with dyslexia that was afraid of his own shadow. That's who I am. The doctor part, man, who's that? Right? I'm the kid from Parkdale that was afraid to get beat up. Right? And if that can answer it, maybe.
Yeah. Great answer.
Great question.
I just don't think a lot of people know that it's an actual disease. And it'd be nice if it was kind of out there a bit more.
Jared, I'll tell you, there are people that very close to me in my family, that just, they don't get it. They feel like, okay, I don't understand about addiction. Why don't people just stop? And that is somebody that hasn't applied themselves to understanding how controlling and how pervasive and all inclusive this thing is. When it gets me, it permeates every fiber of my existence. It becomes me.
Yeah, that's an amazing point. I was willing to, put everything aside for my addiction. And I found finding out that it was a disease was almost like a weight lifted off my,
right?
Right? And it was just like, okay, now we can start moving forward.
And I'll tell you the other thing that's huge about that definition, that's so important, right? The recovering person, we talk about shame and guilt, right? And there's a big difference between shame and guilt. And a lot of people in recovery a lot of them don't even know about the difference between shame and guilt. And what I've been taught was I can recover with guilt. I can't recover with shame. I got to let go of shame. So I'm guilty of making mistakes because of my illness. When I was in active addiction, I made a lot of mistakes. I'm guilty of that, and I have to pay the price, period, no options. Shame is a different ballgame. Guilt is I did wrong. Shame is I am bad. I'm a bad person. And we have to let go of that stuff. I'm not a bad person. We're not bad people. We're just sick. We're sick and we made mistakes. And we got to pay the price, right? Got to pay the price. And we got to pay our dues. But we have to let go of the guilt. The shame. The shame will keep us from recovering.
I had a question for you, George. It just came up when you were talking about, maybe there being a pill one day. And I know for myself, how much I've learned about, David since being in recovery. Besides maybe that pill stopping you from maybe hurting people or this and that, would you take that pill from how much you've learned about George through recovery?
It's a good question, right? I've taken medications and treatments for brain tumors and bowel obstructions and all kinds of things that have happened to me medically, that I needed these things to stay alive. If we ever get to the point that there is a therapy that cures addiction, I don't think I'm going to ever see that day. And not trying to be negative, right? Not trying to be cynical, but you got to remember where this thing is, right? If you start studying the neuroanatomy and the neurophysiology of addiction, you know where it is. It's in the limbic system. The limbic system is in the base of our skull. It's the primordial brain, the lizard brain. It's where scent is. It's where our breathing occurs. We don't know that much about it. We just know that it's there, right? And can you imagine developing a pill that would actually solve it? Would I take it? Assuming that it was proven to be safe.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something. You know, I'm addicted to a disease where I love more of anything, right? If somebody gave me a pill to take it, and then all of a sudden I cannot live this, and all of a sudden I'm okay to drink, I don't know. I don't know. I don't trust myself that much. I'd rather stay the way I am.
Yeah.
It works for me now. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Can't tell you what's going to happen tonight. But I can tell you that up until now, this has worked for George. The pill is cool. It's a cool concept. Like I'm plugged into a lot of stuff now, where we're learning a lot about things and chemicals and treatments, and we're learning about the brain big time. And it's some pretty amazing medicine that's coming out and discoveries. But we're not very. I hope I'm proven wrong, but I'm not going to see it. I don't think I'm going to see that pill, and that's okay. I'll stick to my Diet Coke.
George, we had a nurse on here who works with an outpatient addictions treatment program, and she made a comment about how when budget cuts happen, it's always like kind of sad to see where addictions and mental health, they kind of get the first, they kind of get chopped first. Do you know why that is, or do you have a theory maybe?
That's a good question, right? It's still, I'll tell you, these budget cuts, Mark, and these things that go on are done by politicians, right? Usually.
Yeah.
And what do politicians do? They want to get reelected.
Yeah.
And how do they get reelected? By getting people to vote for them. And so it comes down to public education, right? The public has no clue about these diseases and how dangerous they are, how much they affect the world. They're an epidemic. Like, they're way more common than some medical problems, right? And nobody's doing anything about it. And those are the first things that we cut. Well, I had a great conversation with Mel, my daughter Melanie, who is halfway through nurse practitioning school. She's a little bit like her old man that way, and she, a year ago or something, this rich family donated something like, I don't know, $10 million to the Center for Mental Health and Addiction, not that long ago. And it got this great publicity that this rich family donated $10 million. And Mel goes to me, that's nothing. With this problem, $10 million is not even a drop in the bucket. How about $100 billion? Now you're talking, right? Yeah. $10 million won't do anything. Now, every little bit helps.
Yeah.
But she understands, because of her old man story, how complicated and expensive, but also how necessary it is to treat this thing. It might look great, 10 million bucks, but she knows you need like 1 million times that to make a difference. And I think the only way we can change that pattern, Mark, of budget cuts and making addiction and mental health stuff more important is by educating the public, doing exactly what we're doing here.
Absolutely. That was a great answer.
You like that one?
Yeah, that was awesome. That got me fired up.
I thought that all by myself. Eh?
Yeah, that was, that was sweet. All right, guys, do we have any more questions for George?
I think I'm tapped out right now, but I just want to thank you, George, and for everything you're doing in the community. And but most importantly, I can personally attest to the two young, awesome, beautiful, talented girls you've helped raise. And I hope your son-in-law is not too much of a pain in the ass to you. He's one of my best friends, and he speaks very highly of you. So thanks for taking time for us today.
Well, Dave, guys, it was a huge honor, and I'm humbled. And my son-in-law, who he's a son now. He's not just a son-in-law, he's one of the gifts of my recovery. Okay, Dave, you know my family, and I'm the luckiest guy in the world. But without recovery, it wouldn't have happened. And so I'm humbled and I'm honored to have been asked to share a little bit about my story. And like I said, if this can help just one person think of our disease in just a little bit different, right? Take it a little bit of a different angle, not stereotype it. You know how many people in my life, when I tell them I'm an addict, they don't believe me? They go, no, an addict is a guy that's passed out on a park bench.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you're looking at one,
Yeah.
right? You're looking at an alcoholic. Oh, you're not an alcoholic. You know what? You want to hear the best? I still have people giving me booze for Christmas.
Holy.
It's true. Oh, yeah, but you're an alcoholic, but that's okay. Here's this bottle.
Jeez.
Yikes. Yeah, that's
So
tough.
we got lots of work to do.
Yeah.
Right, and that's okay. It's okay. It's baby steps. Let me tell you one big thing. One big lesson. I've learned many lessons in recovery, but one of the biggest ones that I've learned is in active addiction, I lost the trust of all the most important people in my life. In fact, nobody trusted me. Right? In active addiction, I lied. Like I said, I would lie when the truth would do. I made up for my shortcomings. I wanted to make up stories because I didn't dare tell the world what was happening to me. Right? I was ashamed. So I lied, and I lost the trust of everybody. And in recovery, I want that trust back. Anybody get that feeling? They want that trust back. They want people to trust them again. And what I want is I want a barrel of trust, a big barrel. I want to gain a barrel of trust, but I can only earn it a thimble at a time. So I have to be patient. I have to be patient. That one thimble today, another thimble tomorrow. One day will earn that barrel of trust. Somebody close to me, after I got my 1-year medallion, and Steph and Mel were there, and it was great, and I felt great. And the next day, this person called me, and they're like, "Congratulations, George. You finally got this thing behind you. You can move on with your life." And I said, you know what? I said, let me tell you something. I go, addiction and alcoholism, the natural history is relapse. You live long enough, you relapse if you don't play your cards right, and if you're not lucky. I said, in fact, let me tell you this, and I know this is very serious, but this is how I roll these days. I said to this person, I said, if I die of something other than an alcohol or drug related problem, relapse, then you can carve on my tombstone that George had a successful recovery. Until then, it's one thimble at a time, and that's okay, because I'm still here to do it. And that's okay, right?
That was awesome.
Yeah, I like
You like
that.
that, eh? I made that one
Yeah.
up too.
Yeah, that was
that one, eh?
Yeah, that was sweet.
That one,
Yeah.
that one kind of hits home to me because I left rehab knowing full well that I had to gain trust back and be patient. And yeah, I just kind of got home and thought everything would just snap my finger and be back to normal, and it was far from that. So I'm still working on that every day. But
Well, I do, you know, the whole idea of me doing that 5-year program, right, which is absolutely, we have to have that. We can't practice without it. Is to basically gain everybody's trusts back professionally. What's going on with this guy, right? What's he going to do here? So trust is massive. And, you know, a barrel of trust is what I want, but I can only earn it a thimble at a time, and that's all right. I'll tell you why, because I've been given that incredible gift of being able to earn it. I've been shown the way. Now for me, it's just to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep it simple. Keep doing the next right thing. And the big stuff will take care of itself. But the trust one is a big one.
Absolutely. George, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome, guys.
Thanks,
You're welcome.
George.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, guys.
If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please reach out and ask for help. Thank you guys very much for listening.